Hey, what's up, everybody? Today, another movie review, and today we're going to be reviewing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that review is coming to you right now. So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood it's a Quentin Tarantino project. This is his ninth movie, which is kind of funny because like back in the day, there was this thing of him saying that he was going to retire after his 10th movie, so that means he has one more to go. But this movie starred Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and what we're going to kind of call like a buddy film because Leonardo is an actor on the Hollywood set as Rick Dalton, and Brad Pitt is Cliff Booth, his stunt double, and we kind of see the dynamics of the two of them as Rick Dalton struggles with maybe being a little outdated, and Clint Booth really just being his wingman, being his buddy that's going to be there by his side despite all the stuff that's going on. This movie happens in 1969, and boy, does it like hit all of the nostalgias of this late 60s, early 70s as far as like branding and products and just old school cars and just all the others, like so much stuff that you kind of forget about, but they just nail it. And then even even some of the film work within the movie has a lot of the old school feel. I mean, you have the 35 millimeter film that you see and some of the trailers of some of the projects that the two of them have worked on in this movie. You see the film distortion from the old school film, and it's just really cool. But just taking a look at some of my notes that I have of it. Oh, this movie is like filled with tons of like faces that you just know from all over. Margot Robbie's in this movie. Austin Butler. Maya Hawke, who's just like really coming to stardom this year after Stranger Things. You have Dakota Fanning, who was a face that I was like, oh wow, I didn't know she was in this movie. And I'll put it this way too. I seen one half of a trailer when I seen this movie, and I was sold. And I said that I'm going to try to avoid any type of spoilers, reviews, or trailers, and just go into this movie like really pure. One thing I will note about this movie, it was long. I think this movie was like it was really close to 3 hours. But in all Quentin Tarantino projects where he directs and writes, it does have and produce as well too. It does have his legitimate feel. So like for it to be as long as it was, it really coasts really well. I can't wait to talk about the last act in this movie. But Luke Perry's in this movie, rest in peace. Al Pacino's in this movie. So again, Kurt Russell. There's so many different people that you see in this movie, and you just like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. And considering that they're on Hollywood sets and they're doing different roles and so forth in this movie, you get to see them kind of like dressed up in a way that you may quickly overlook them. Because the makeup and costume design of the sets that they're played on are really good. But the one thing about Quentin Tarantino movies that I really am fond of is just how the music really provides great dynamics in this movie. This movie was filled with suspense. And if you know anything about the 60s or late 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of reasons, especially within Hollywood. There's one particular thing I'm going to talk about in a second, that at any moment you feel like something's going to happen bad. And the suspense with the music definitely provides another added layer of like thrill for this movie, despite everything that's going on, despite the humor, despite the emotions, because there's just a lot of that going on. So with Quentin Tarantino projects, it's going to be long. This movie, like I said, was about almost 3 hours, 161 minutes. So about 2 hours. Oh yeah, 161 minutes. But without any expectations, there is one expectation that you can have with a Quentin Tarantino project, and that's his foot fetish. And this movie had an overload of feet shots I have lost count around 10, but an overload of feet shots in this movie. And if you never knew that about Quentin Tarantino, go back and look at his movies, because this guy absolutely has a foot fetish for sure. But again, we're talking about this movie being in Hollywood and then the late 60s, 1969 exactly. And you see, again, you see a lot of good things. If you're really familiar with this time period, you see a lot of things that really like is reminiscent nostalgia to you. One other thing that they put emphasis on is that Clio Drive. And if you know Clio Drive, you know about the beginning, and they even show it too in this movie too. You know, like the symbolic factor with this residence up there. And even at a point too, you get to see a very familiar face in Charles Manson, paying a visit up to one of the residents up in Clio Drive. We even get to see the Manson. I keep wanting to say mansion, the Manson compound, where all of the little girls that was brainwashed by this guy, this sinister guy back in the day. So you do get to see that, and you know, with that name comes a lot of trouble. But yeah, so this movie does a really good job of showing Rick Dalton, who's again played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who's kind of like struggling in Hollywood a little bit, because he had a lot of foreshadowing about how his career was going to come to an end. And you know, a lot of people's Hollywood career don't sustain the longevity as they would like it to be. And which is really cool about this character as well as too, is because Leonardo DiCaprio embraces the emotions. Like his cry scenes are like absolutely like amazing, but so comedic, and like you're just gonna really appreciate him. Whereas you have a different dynamic in Brad Pitt and his character, and Clint Booth, who's just cool, laid back. I mean, he's ice cold. I mean, he goes into the Manson compound and just without fear. And you know, you see the two dynamics of how two different people can really compose to be really good friends throughout this movie. And we're talking about Leo and Brad, the two of them together. You know, you're gonna get something really, or like really energetic and fun. And this movie absolutely provides that 100%. Now, this is one scene I had to go look this up with a little kid actor who I'm not familiar with, but her name is Julia Butters, and she plays Trudy in this movie. And there's this one scene with her and Leo's character that is absolutely amazing. Actually, every scene that she's in is just breathtaking good. The one thing I really loved about this movie was the dialogue. The conversations between people were so good, filled with so much substance and humor, and just little things you could pick up on, sarcasm and just witty, that I just loved it. I loved it. But again, the movie's long, and I think it's really well paced. And I think when you talk about Quentin Tarantino, you're looking for a lot of gore and action, stuff like that. And this movie does it in more of a verbal way that is great. I thought it was great. Another thing that, and again with the music with it as well too, it provides so much suspense that you know at any time something can happen, something may happen. Margot Robbie in this movie. Now, there wasn't a lot of Margot Robbie in this movie. I mean, like, she had one, like, legit, like, long scene. But other than that, we didn't get much of her. And obviously, she plays Sharon Tate. And if you know who Sharon Tate is, you should look it up, because the Sharon Tate and Charles Manson stories, you know, it's one of the nights the Hollywood landscape, and at least the Americans' perception of Hollywood really changed. So you should definitely look at that. It's one of the most gruesome like murders of all time. The narration of this movie really good. I mean, you always expect that with Quentin Tarantino movies. You expect to get some really good narration of the movie. So I thought that was really good as well too. But again, there's really not too much to talk about as far as the movie. Again, ton of familiar faces and star power in this movie. and it's a good ride. Now, the final act of this movie, the last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, insane. Quentin Tarantino at his best. There's a flamethrower. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a flamethrower. It's a freaking flamethrower at the end of this movie. The fight scene, the gore, just the cool, collected demeanor of Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt's character, the dog, just everything. The flamethrower. It's insane. So, coast through the movie if you're not really big into if you're looking for a lot of just non-stop action in this movie, like most Quentin Tarantino movies, you're not going to get it here. Again, I think that the action is within the dialogue, within the not the effects, the sound effects, and eventually you get to the point of the movie where it all explodes into one final scene where it just goes off the rails, and it's just so much everything happening. It's definitely worth a watch for sure. But yeah, I like this movie, and I think people should check it out. It comes out this weekend, the exact date of it being the 26th. So you have time, obviously. Yeah, check it out. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Go do that. So anyway, thank you for listening to my review, and catch you for the next one.
Big old bell.